Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judah, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. It is week 12 and I'm shocked by that. The season's gone so quickly. We've just had Thanksgiving, which really is starting to signal the run up to Christmas now. So we're going to be recapping all of the Thanksgiving games today, as well as previewing the first Black Friday game and the rest of the week 12 slate as well. And joining me to do that is Charlie Grace. You've been on a podcast a couple of weeks ago now. You've not been on for a while before that, but mate, I love you on these preview podcasts because we can really go into depth on these games. And we had quite a few. We had one good game last night, didn't we? And then the other two were a bit rubbish. But we'll start with that game in a minute. But firstly, mate, how are you doing? It's been 2 weeks since you last on.
Yeah, good to have. Thanks for having me back on. Excited to talk about these games and then preview the rest of the week. But it was a bit of a fun day. Ended up staying up to watch the end of the San Fran Seattle game. I initially was going to go to bed at half time, but I just kind of stayed up and had it on in the background. Kind of petered out a bit like the Cowboys Commanders game, really, and there wasn't a lot on it, but glad to be back.
There we are, and we the two of us as well as Owen and Ollie, who've been on the podcast many times over the last 12 weeks. We all went for a Thanksgiving dinner last night. We went for a massive carvery just to fill our stomachs before the games. Something into a bit of a food coma in the first game, which sort of was a bit disappointing because the start of the first game was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, where the Packers got revenge for a week 4 domination over the Lions, with the shot triumph over the Lions, as I said. Yeah, in the second game, they got absolutely smashed in the last Thursday night game against the Lions. This time they played on a Thursday afternoon, and I thought they were excellent. Jordan Love especially, his best game by far. It went 22 of 32 for 268 yards and 3 touchdowns, as the Packers beat the Lions 29-22. He's had better stat lines this year, but he's had some bad plays in those games with good stat lines. I think it's sort of been a bit, kind to him. These last 2 games have been his 2 best games, and I've been really impressed with what he's done in that time. A complete performance in general from the Packers, to be honest with you. And I think the Lions they weren't bad, but turnovers hurt them. And as of last week, it cost them this game. Last week they were lucky they were playing the Bears and they could come back right at the end because the Bears aren't a well-coached football team. But yeah, this week the issues carried on. 7 turnovers in the last 2 games, 6 of them caused by Jared Goff, which is a bit of a concern, I'd say. It's the second time the Lions have crap the bed this season on a national TV game, or a game that everyone's watching, because the Lions game was also a nationally televised game because it was the premier game in that window. They're both in a big spot, as I said earlier, and I think they showed a lot of toughness last week by winning that game. But I'm a bit concerned by the way they lost yesterday. Are you, Charlie?
Yeah, they just couldn't move the ball in the first half. It seemed like every time I looked up, it was like Jordan Love was back on the field. AJ Dillon was running the ball on an end around. They just could not get a first down in that first half. I think Green Bay set the tone. We were having a little bit of debate with Ollie, weren't it, before the game, about whether we defer or kick off. And I think Green Bay chose to take the kickoff and actually set the tone for the game with the deep bomb first, with the first play of the game, and then obviously being quite clinical, scoring their own touchdown. And the defense really stepped up despite their secondary injuries for the Packers. Eric Stokes on IR, Jair Alexander was ruled out, and Rasul Douglas obviously got traded across to the Bills. So they had Ballantyne and Valentine back there, didn't they? And they kind of locked down the Lions receiving core, and Goff with the 3 costly fumbles, and Green Bay now back in the playoff picture as well. But from a Lions point of view, I think it was a concerning loss, and I think with the way Dallas played yesterday and San Francisco played as well, I think they're, people at the start of the season thought maybe Detroit were knocking on the door to be one of those big three NFC teams, but last couple of weeks they've wobbled a bit and they haven't really beaten a legit team other than the Chiefs on night one. Like, that was a big statement win, but since then they haven't really. I wouldn't say they've blown me out of the water with any of their wins. They've just kind of churned them out over teams that they're better than, and they feel like a kind of divisional round road game loss.
Well,
team.
The thing with that Chiefs game as well is the Chiefs literally gifted that game to the Lions. It's not as if they were exceptional or anything. It's just Kansas City kept turning the ball over, and they also couldn't catch the football. And when after that game, Liam came on, I think he said it was the worst amount of drops or something like that of all time from the Chiefs that game. So that was an anomaly in the first place. So even then, you could probably maybe even scratch off that win because the Chiefs handed them that game.
Yeah, and I think I love Jared Goff. I think his kind of redemption story in Detroit's been really great. And again, we were talking about last night. The Stafford Goff trade doesn't. Owen mentioned it doesn't feel like anyone lost that trade. But you start to think maybe it's time, with the stacked QB draft class coming up, that they took Hendon Hooker, but he's back on IR. I don't know. He's almost 74 years old now. Like, don't think he's going to be a future starter. So, maybe they look to this draft class, either trade up in the draft or back end of the first round, because they're not getting a high draft pick. They're pretty much a shoo-in for the playoffs already. That they take a QB, and even if that QB sits behind Goff for another year, I don't think this team can win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff
No.
at quarterback. I think that there's a couple of pieces they're far off winning a Super Bowl with, but they win that game yesterday if they have a better quarterback than Jared Goff.
Yeah, and I think, well, that's the thing. To me, it does look like they're starting to crumble a bit because of that. Because they've had success in the last sort of 20 games or so over the last two seasons where Goff didn't really turn the ball over, and then that on that long streak without turning the ball over towards the end of last year and for quite a big chunk of this year as well. Then he did turn the ball over, and since then he's turned the ball over quite a bit. So there is that, I think, a little bit that probably does need fixing. But they've got a little bit of I hope it's not the case that they are crumbling, because they've got a mini bye week now. They've got 10 days to try and fix things before going to New Orleans. So that's sort of a bit of an advantage of playing Thanksgiving. If you play two sort of bad games back to back, you win one of them, you go into your mini bye, and then you can probably start sort of rebuild as a team after that. So there is an advantage there for the Lions for sure. As for the Packers, they were excellent. I think they're certainly still alive. I think, aren't they, Charlie? Especially with the Seattle game, which we'll get into in a minute.
Yeah, but they're a game back from Seattle now. And you compare the run-ins, Green Bay's is exponentially easier than Seattle's run-in. Seattle got a horrendous run coming up. And the Packers are going to be probably competing with 2 or 3 of the NFC South teams as well for that final playoff spot, I'd have thought, along with Seattle. All probably looking at like 9-8, 8-9 records around there. The 3 NFC South teams have got the beauty of having to play New Orleans, Carolina like twice still, in the Falcons' case.
The Saints are probably going to win that division. What are you on about? I was like,
there's a lot left up for grabs there. So there's still competition around, and I think, but Green Bay they've looked good last 2 weeks. Jordan Love looked good yesterday. He's a couple of his throws over the middle of the field that, there was a middle linebacker in there, but he managed to place the ball in the kind of hole in between linebacker and safety and get a couple of big chunk plays. So he's certainly progressed since I last watched him a few weeks ago against the Broncos. And I think if he keeps his current level of play up, there's no reason they can't make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a possibility. It's not a possibility for Washington though, who their season's over after going to 4-8 and getting pretty much smashed by Dallas in the second half. I think quality showed for the Cowboys in that runaway victory. The Commanders they were down about 4 points at half time. Or maybe they were down a one score for quite a big chunk of this game. They had the football for 37 minutes in this game. That's almost 2/3 of possession. They lost this game by 5 scores, which I think sort of shows where Washington are at. Dallas scored 6 touchdowns with 23 minutes of the football, which is really impressive. Obviously, one of them being Deron Bland's 5th pick 6 of the season, an NFL single season record, which are just incredible for him. What a season! Again, Dallas are scoring more touchdowns with their defense and a lot of QBs. Than Kenny Pickett has this season, which is just mental to think about. Dak Prescott continues his impressive play. He went 22 of 32 for 331 yards and 4 of those touchdowns. And I've been praising Dak these last 4 weeks. I'm a big critic. I have been. I ranked him 19 in my QB ranking this season, going into it for the guide. But over the last 4 weeks, in that time, he's had over 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. To put that into perspective, I think he's had 19 this entire year. Oh no, hang on, he's had 25 this entire year. So half of this season have come in the last 4 games. And that's the same amount of career touchdowns that Kenny Pickett has had in his career, that Dak has had in the last 4 games as well, which is, again, a bit of a funny stat. And he is also PFF's highest graded QB in that period too. He's building a late MVP charge. I think he's got a legitimate chance of it if they win a couple of their big games coming up. But it's whether they actually do, that's the problem, because a lot of them are on the road, and that's where Dallas start to struggle, and that's where Dak crumbles. And so we'll see what happens there. But he's certainly been one of the best players in football the last couple of weeks, hasn't he, Charlie?
Sure. My first kind of note was a Dak for MVP question mark. I think he's got to start, entering that conversation. But the Cowboys are on a roll, and I think I mentioned before Detroit early on in the season we're looking to kind of break into that top 3 NFC teams, but I think the hierarchy now is in it's starting to form. You got Philly, San Fran, Dallas, and then probably Detroit a fair way back from there. But they look really good yesterday, and again they're good on both sides of the ball. It feels like the same Dallas team we've had for the last few years, but the difference is Dak's playing really, really well. Really
way
nice
better
football.
than last year. That's the thing. If he can play
taking
this
care
year,
of the
going into
ball.
the playoffs, that's it.
Yeah, taking care of the ball. And I mentioned it the other day. He's reminds me a lot of Josh Allen, but without the kind of brutish running ability of Josh Allen. But he's always got that big bomb play in him. He's, but whereas Josh Allen this year hasn't taken care of the football as much, Dak Prescott really is. He's not turning the ball over half as much as he usually does. This Cowboys team's on a roll. If they can stay healthy, then I don't see why they couldn't, upset a Philly or a San Francisco in the playoffs. And the question mark just remains over: can they be a good team, like a legit team, similar to storyline around the Dolphins? They bully those like bad teams, like a Washington or a Giants, but when they come against a good team, they do seem to struggle. And they've got they're at the Bills and at the Dolphins still yet to come. They've got to play the Eagles as well. So I think that comes in a 3-game stretch as well. So that's like basically a boom or bust kind of 3-week stretch across Christmas. Like, can you beat Philly in Jerry World? And then can you go on the road and disrupt one of those big teams that's also going to be chasing a playoff berth on the road? And then you kind of put all these question marks to bed. And we always say, is this the Cowboys' year? It became a bit like Liverpool in the late 2010s. Like, is this their year? I don't know if this is their year this year, because Philly are like a juggernaut, and you'll have to play Philly twice, it feels like, if you're going to make the Super Bowl. One of them in Philly. So it's difficult to say, but yeah, Dak's certainly making an MVP charge, and the Cowboys are on a roll.
Well, that's the thing as well, because if they can win those 3 games, like you said, they probably have a shot at winning the division. And if they can win the division, then the possibilities are endless, because in that building, in AT&T Stadium, Dallas are pretty much unbeatable at this point in time. Yeah, their point differential at home is one of the maddest things I've ever seen. So if they can, if they can beat Philadelphia in Dallas, then they're certainly onto something, because they'll only be 2 games back from. I think the Eagles got a really tough schedule as well. If the Eagles lose to Buffalo, for example, this week, it's game on for Dallas. It really is, and that's what they're hoping for, I expect. With that defense too, as you said, I believe they're a top team in football. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, those 3 teams are actually the 3 best teams in football, and it's sort of like top heavy NFC. In top heavy NFC, and then there's a sort of loaded AFC, but the NFC, I think, have the 3 best teams in football, in my opinion. And as for Washington, just so we can talk about them a little bit, they held in there. They fell away in the second half, but I can't wait to see them with a new coach next year, and that's the thing. I don't think they're too far away from the postseason, like sort of talent-wise. Obviously, they've been very unlucky with injuries. They're down to they're like 6th and 7th edge rushers at this point in time, after losing the likes of James Smith-Williams and F.A. Barter in the last couple of weeks, as well as obviously trading away Sweat and Chase Young. They're very, very hurt in those positions, and obviously they're, as well as others as well. Offensive line is awful. If they can build that offensive line, then I really do feel like they've got something there. Sam Howell, he's impressed me this season in that situation, which is, again, one of the worst situations we've ever seen for a quarterback to have, being pressured every 2 snaps, but by the seams of it. We'll end it there with this game. But again, Dallas looked amazing, as did the Niners, who carried on their impressive form to beat their division rival Seattle Seahawks, who underwhelmed, I thought. It was an awesome uniform matchup in this game. The Niners' white throwbacks against the Seattle's action green colour rush uniforms. Really nice to see. It pops out your TV. Well, you always do at the link, as Central Infield, as people as used to call it before it became Lumen Field. But yeah, it was great to. Great to see. It just pops out in prime time, especially those green jerseys. But the Niners were up 24-3 at half time, and it was sort of, the game felt over by then. The Seahawks came back and had a little bit of a fight. They picked off a tipped Brock Purdy pass to that end for a touchdown, and then Gino hit Jonathan Smith and Jigba with an awesome one-handed catch on 3rd and 9, which is probably the play of this game, to be fair. But they could only score a field goal on that drive, and they had to score another touchdown to really put pressure on the team that is one of the best teams in football. The 4th quarter, Brandon Ayuk touchdown iced the game. And I actually thought that the Seattle defense played quite well, but their offense is just so banged up. They've been so unfortunate with injuries that they're really starting to show right now. They've got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf playing at 50%. They've hardly practiced these last couple of months now. They've got a banged up Geno Smith, who you can tell he had a hurt elbow in this game. You've got a banged up offensive line. You're obviously still missing Abraham Lucas. Charles Cross has just come back from injury, and you're missing your top running back too. That's really harsh with injuries wise. So you're pretty much leaving it to Zach Charbonnet, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who are rookies, and they'll be great for the future. But it's a great learning experience. But I think Seattle this year, I don't expect them to do anything with how many injuries they've had. The Niners defense feasted on that as well, with 6 sacks, interception, and 5 tackles for loss. And it both had a game. And we were saying last night, the AFC obviously may be the strong conference, but with the NFC, as I said just earlier as well, the Niners are probably, these 3 teams, the Niners, Cowboys, and Eagles, are the best 3 teams in the NFC and in the NFL, I think, as well. But I think the Niners, the last couple of weeks, after losing that, after their bye, after this 3-game losing streak, I really think they probably, them and Philly especially, are just so good. Obviously, they're loaded up with talent, Charlie. But when we look at these 2 teams, it's just a joy to watch, isn't it? Just because when you see Christian McCaffrey doing this thing, a healthy Christian McCaffrey, it's just excellent to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just really fun. And still not sure 100% about the Brock Purdy thing. Like,
he wasn't excellent last night, but he did everything he was asked to do, and that's at least when he's not on top form.
That's kind of what he does,
that's
right?
Fine. Yeah.
He, like, Shanahan is almost the quarterback there, because he just puts his alter ego in Brock Purdy out there, like his AI robot thing. It's like he just computes what he wants it to do, and he'll do it. But I don't know if Brock Purdy can win you a playoff game in Philly or necessarily in Dallas if it came down to it. But they're a really fun team. Brandon Ayuk probably be a wide receiver 1 anywhere else. in the league.
I think he probably is in San Francisco as well, because
Yeah.
Debo's more of a gadget player. He's getting more targets than Debo this year as well. Obviously, last night was a big Debo night, but it's not been that this season, especially with Debo being injured. But look, Ayuk's in my opinion, I actually think he's probably a top 5 receiver in the NFL. I've loved him since college.
Arguably, probably, yeah.
I really think this season, especially, he's been a top 5 receiver. You probably say Tyreek, AJ Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Ayuk. I'll probably say are my top 5 receivers this year. Maybe Keenan Allen pop in there, but this year he's been excellent.
Yeah, and and then you mentioned obviously Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, both can run the ball, can catch the ball, electric after the catch. George Kittle, obviously reliable tight end in there as well. So they're just a great team offensively, and on the defense, Charvarius Ward, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, however many other all-star players they've got on that D-line. They're just stacked everywhere, and they're a really great team to watch. And it's always high-quality football when you watch them play as well. It never feels like it's scrappy or feels like it's, someone's missed an assignment. They always feel like they're drilled in, really well-executed team. I wrote in my notes, I think they're the only thing that stands between Philly and the Super Bowl at this point, from what we've seen this season. They play them in a couple of weeks. They go into Philly. That'll be a huge game for the 1 seed stakes, I think. And on Seattle, I think they're genuinely at risk of missing the playoffs now. I think they had a game last week against the Rams that they couldn't afford to drop with their schedule coming up. They've got to play now the Philly, the Niners again, and then let me just find the Cowboys. So, you don't see them picking up a win there with the injuries they've got. And the defense kind of kept them in games this year when the offense has faltered. But last night they just got picked apart by a superior offense. Reek Willen got benched, reportedly. Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't a good night for Seattle on primetime TV, and with the Packers win earlier in the day as well, it was even worse because Packers, as I said, game back. A couple of those NFC South teams are going to be lingering around that kind of 8 and 9 records as well, which Seattle will be looking at kind of matching with their next 3 games. Could see them come out this run like 6 and 8, which is not ideal when you then go into your stretch of your late December, early January games, trying to make a playoff run. But Pete Carroll's experience, he'll know what he's doing with his team, coaching the team. They're a young team, but I think with the injuries and the way the momentum's going, I wouldn't pick them to make the playoffs at current. I don't know about how you feel about that.
I don't know. I'm sort of in the same boat really. I obviously the injury. It's not because they've been okay. They've been a top sort of 20 team in football, which is what you probably need to do to sneak into the playoffs anyway. Maybe even top 15. But it's just inconsistencies, and that's the problem with them, and because of injuries as well. And with the schedule coming up, I don't know. I mean, I probably would like them to. I think they probably will get in over Green Bay. But that's just more because I feel like LaFleur and Jordan Love are going to mess us up, rather than. But look, Seattle are a better coach team, and that's in those sort of games. That's what in December and January. That's what matters. And we've seen the Packers have faltered in December and January the last couple of years. They've been. It's not the last time they've been in this situation, is it? So it's not the first time really. So I don't know. I'll still pick Seattle to make the playoffs over those teams. Maybe I can maybe see the Bucks sneaking in. I was
going to say Bucks and Falcons are kind of sneaking up.
Falcons aren't making the playoffs. No.
I don't know because
they got an easy schedule, but
they play the Saints this week, and they go to the Jets, and they got the Bucks at the Panthers, Colts, at Bears, at Saints. Like there's a very winnable kind of. I think there's winnable games there.
But they have to win this week. If not, they're done. And that's the thing. It is very much it's on the knife edge with them.
The other thing with Atlanta is they lead the divisional tiebreak because they're 2-0 in division.
That is a good point, which we'll get into in a minute. But we'll before we get into that, let's just finish with the Seattle San Francisco game. We'll get on to the first of the week 12 games to come, and that is the first ever Black Friday game. Amazon have paid the NFL $100 million to broadcast this standalone game. It's not part of their TV deal. This is obviously the first game on a Friday sort of night our time. That's not like a Christmas game or something like that. It's just a standalone game. Friday afternoon in America. I'm interested to see if this works. It's an experiment for Amazon. It's I saw a thread on Twitter, and this is sort of their preview into the future of broadcasting. This is free to watch for non-Prime subscribers. Obviously, it's on Sky in the UK too, and they're doing specialised advertising based on Amazon purchases. So they've got special adverts for people who aren't like Prime members or there are also adverts based on your Amazon purchases for people who are obviously are Prime members. They've shot adverts. I think it's 800,000 companies have to pay to advertise their product, which is double what it would normally be on a Thursday night game on Amazon. And they're doing these things where they've got like a way where you can buy the product you're watching the advert for without even leaving the broadcast, which is just mental. It's a Black Friday shopping thing. It's brilliant. But with the way that Amazon and Apple are all getting these, they have the ability to do that when obviously TV you can't do that. So maybe next year we'll see a big, if this goes well, we'll see a big bidding war for this game, because it's a huge opportunity for to try something new broadcasting wise. This was meant to be one of the best games of the season too, which is why they paid a lot of money to broadcast this game. But without Aaron Rodgers, and the Jets on their third QB and sort of out of the division race now, the AFC East race has been a little bit underwhelming compared to what we thought it would be at the start of the season. And I expect people are probably sick of the Jets on prime time at this point in time. Luckily, the battle between the Jets defense and the Dolphins offense should be fascinating, and that's what's the big selling point of this game. You've got the number one offense in most categories, number two in rushing as well, number one in passing, against a top 10 defense and one that has limited top quarterbacks this season. It's a chance for Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill to affirm their position in the MVP conversation in prime time as well. Because they've got two national TV games before the three games that will shape their quest for the one seed coming up. And I think if they win those games, people will feel differently about them because they get to see them win big, or win at least win a national televised game, which they've not been able to do so far because they've played the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Bills in those spots this season. So there are three different games to play. That's the thing with this game. The defense of Miami has stepped up. It is healthy, and that's what let the team earlier down in the year, which is why there's a lot of optimism about this Dolphins team now, because they're playing complete football on both sides of the ball. Even without Devon Achane in this game, he's a questionable game. He's a game time decision in this one. He re-aggravated his knee injury against the Raiders last week, but he's only considered day-to-day, so they may hold him out of this one and then play him after their mini-bye. Sort of 9 days off. But even without him, it doesn't change my mind. I'm picking the Dolphins to win this game because I feel like this is the game for their defense, and it's a game for them to show why they've been such a good defense the last couple of weeks on national TV, and to really show people they are here to push for that one seed. And they've got one of the easiest schedules coming up as well. They win this, go to 18-3. They're only a game behind the Chiefs. They have a perfect chance to get this, national TV time as well. I think if they win this, the sort of the feeling around the Dolphins in the US media, I think that's the thing, is they will probably be a bit different, because being a tough defense on the road, that's in a cold weather game as well. That's what a lot of the critics of the Dolphins are saying. So I feel like they're probably going to end that talk and go and win this one. How are you feeling about this game, Charlie?
I think that I wrote down obviously the key battles of the Dolphins passing offense against the Jets passing defense. They rank fairly similarly in their respective tiers. So it's going to be an interesting aspect to watch. But the Jets aren't great defending the run. They're like bottom 5 in the league.
Get Raheem Mostert going, and that's the thing. Or Achane plays, and that's the Dolphins' key to success, because the running game opens up the passing game for them, and it allows them to do things off play action. Tua has been the best quarterback off play action other than Matthew Stafford, who hasn't actually thrown a touchdown pass this season, but he's been great with because of again the Rams run game with lots of Kyron Williams and stuff, getting them going at the start of the season. Him and Tua have been excellent in off play action. If they can get that going, that's the key to victory. I think get the run game going, and that's how they scored 70 on Denver.
I was going to say, that New York are kind of lucky that we're so bad against the run that I don't think they're the worst team actually. But my only concern is the Dolphins only managed to squeeze past the Raiders by like a score last week. I think the Jets defense is better than the Raiders defense by quite a substantial margin, which is a concern. But then on the flip side, I don't think the Dolphins are going to be forced to score more than 16 points to win this game because Tim Boyle's starting. No disrespect to Tim Boyle, but he's not. He's been the backup QB. He was the third string QB at the start of the year, backed up to Zach Wilson, come in kind of on short notice because I think Robert Saleh got pressured from above in the organisation to get rid of Zach Wilson. He's our third string quarterback. So I think the Dolphins won't be forced to score that many points to win this game. It will be a challenge because Jets defense is really good and divisional games are always tough. So it feels like it'd be one that the Dolphins can comfortably win, but might go down to the wire slightly, kind of a 14-10, Jets hanging in there and then one big play to kind of get you over that finish line and a bit late in the day. But I'm looking forward to it. We don't usually get games on a Friday. Generally, we kind of stay up late for the Thursday game, kind of sleep through the Friday, have our football, soccer on the Saturday, and then we get ready for the Sunday games. But I'm enjoying this week. 3 games yesterday, game today, college football now back on Sky Sports tomorrow. So you got football on a Saturday after we watch our football, and then like you said, full slate on the Sunday. So football galore this week. But I've gone the Dolphins to win because I have no faith in this Jets team. And a quick point, I think you mentioned about it the other day. We were kind of talking about it before coming on. That if Rodgers is healthy, you do not put him out there.
No.
I don't care how good this miracle kind of surgery that he's had is. If you are, you're already out of the playoff race, you can tank and get an elite piece for next year.
Offensive line, that's what they need.
Yeah.
Because you can probably find a decent, cheap slot receiver, which is what the Jets are missing, in free agency. I think if you can get an offensive lineman in this draft, it's quite a good class of offensive lineman as well. Actually, if they can get an offensive lineman, then that's what they need. Again, we were saying about it yesterday. I think the Jets. I think they've got a chance for the Super Bowl next year if everyone stays healthy. It's just they are the team because of the way that defense has played the last couple of years. They are the team that scares me in the AFC more than Buffalo, more than Kansas City at this point in time. If they can get everything right, more than Cincinnati, Houston maybe more. But I think Houston and the Jets next year can have a tremendous season if everything stays healthy right now.
Yeah. You don't put Aaron Rodgers out there because
the
risk of him, especially at MetLife, we've all heard about the turf at MetLife. If he busts his Achilles again or another aggravates and different injury, like your stock absolutely tanks then for the next year. So I don't see the point in putting Aaron Rodgers out there at all. Put this season down as a dud. He played your reason for all your off-season hype, played 4 snaps all year. You can kind of get away with that. Everyone's going to survive in their jobs. There's no risk of just playing Tim Boyle for the next 6 weeks. Go through the motions, go a little deeper in the playbook, see what works, see what doesn't, and restock for next year, I think.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's a good point there. We'll go on to the games on Sunday now. On a big game on Sunday in the early window, it's probably the game of the week, I'd say, competitive wise. It is the Jags going into Houston. It's massive in the AFC South race, absolutely huge. The Texans beat the Jags in week 3, and it means that if they win here, it would see them move to the top of the division at having a tiebreaker over the Jags, of course, and both teams will be at 7-4. Since then, the Jags have lost once. That big loss to San Francisco, and Houston twice. On the road to the Panthers and the Falcons. But in Houston, they've been excellent. The two of the most informed teams in the league right now, and two of the most exciting young teams that are led by two top 2 draft picks at quarterback. They're quite evenly matched, but I think if you look at the numbers, they're actually quite similar. Even in that aspect, the Jags' defense probably a little better than the Texans, especially situationally. But then if you look at the Texans' offense, especially in the air, it's been exceptional since their last meeting earlier in the season, and it's really spearheaded the run that they're on now. I think where this game is won and lost for Jacksonville, because I think obviously the Jags are the favourites here, is their offensive line. Yeah, it's not great at all. Certainly worse than Houston's, especially after getting their top 2 tackles back. When kept clean, Lawrence has been awesome this season. The problem is he's not been kept clean a lot, and he struggled under pressure, which is which is sort of forced turnovers. It's also forced a lot of missed throws on the likes of third down, which has pulled his performance down a little bit. But last week we saw an excellent performance in that aspect. Responding to the big loss. He's had one of the quickest times to throw in the league this season because of that as well, and a lot of the time as well. I think Lawrence, if you give him a little bit more time, he's not a one-read quarterback. If you give him a bit more time, he can dissect the defense and really start to cause issues, which was what we saw last year when they had Jawan Taylor in there in their offensive line, and they had a better offensive line than they do now. They have to get the ground game going too. If the channel's open for Travis Etienne, the Jags will win this game. It's rare that a team that as well coached as the Jags get swept in the division as well. So it's before we pick the game, that there is something. Everything's leaning towards Jacksonville winning this game, but whether they actually do or not is a different question, because Houston have been excellent, and this as I said earlier, Charlie, this game is just absolutely massive, isn't it?
Yeah, I love this Houston run. I'm kind of rooting for him. I think CJ Stroud I liked him out the draft, and he's taken like a duck to water in the NFL. Really, he comfortably. You could say he's a top 10 quarterback in the league this season. I think he's a shoe-in for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. Mm-hmm. I think he's an outsider in the MVP race. I think you have to mention his name in the MVP race at least. Yeah, he's not necessarily going to come top 3, but or top 5 even. But he deserves a mention in that race because if
he wins the division and makes the playoffs, he's certainly got a shot. And that's the thing. This game is, if he's going to win MVP, this game is a real realistic game. Because if he loses this game, he won't win it. If you lose this game, that he has to win this game to do it. I don't think he's going to win it anyway, especially if the likes of Tyreek and Christian McCaffrey have their massive seasons and that carries on as it is. But if he wins this game, then really we need to start having that conversation. We've been sort of teasing it, but this game is huge for that case. It's such a huge win for the MVP race in general, because there's so much as you get towards the season, there's so much going into the final month of the season. There's so much resting on these games, isn't it?
I wrote, Texans could take a huge tiebreaker in this. They could go 2-0 against the Jags. They would get level with the Jags, on 7-3. And then they host Denver next week, which is another AFC team which they can, realistically, they can also beat. So on the flip side, Jacksonville can get a bit of breathing room in the playoff race. So it's such a key game. No wonder Sky chose it. It feels good to have the Texans relevant again. They've first one they've been relevant since before COVID, and since before the whole Deshaun Watson debacle and everything. So it feels good to have them back. D'Amico Ryan's got to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year as well. He's done a tremendous job there. And I'm just really looking forward to this game. It's going to be really fun. But both teams are fun teams to watch. That you would tune into their games every week, and just can't wait because it's such a key game with so much riding on it. Yeah,
and I'm going to pick Jacksonville in this game just because I love their defense. Turnovers per game leads that this season. They've been excellent. Stroud, although he's not turned the ball over as much as he probably should have done, he has had some plays out there that he, as any rookie does, His interception, if you look at the numbers, is quite low. But if you look at the turnover he plays, he's been quite lucky on a lot of his throws this season. And we saw in the game last week against Arizona that a lot of that we saw the pendulum swung, and he got unlucky on one throw, but he did the other two throws were intercepted because it was a poor throw. And I think the Jags take advantage of that as well because they're very, very, very good at that. We've seen that all season. Also, again, I think they're too well coached to get swept by a team in a division. It's very rare that you see, as I said earlier, it's very rare you see a team this good get swept normally they come back and get revenge in some point in the second game, especially after the way that the Texans won the first game. So I'm going to pick the Jags to win this game, but I wouldn't bet on it. I really wouldn't bet on it. I think it could go either way. But yeah, give me Jacksonville to win this game. I think as well, because if they win this, they as well as Miami. Have got an excellent chance at the 1 seed, and they've got some big games coming up down the stretch to they haven't, but if they can carry on winning, then it's in their hands to get this 1 seed, which is excellent for the Jags, to be fair, because Miami, Baltimore, and Kansas City have really got to fight for that between themselves. If the Jags win this game, then it's going to be mental going down to the end of the season, and I kind of want to see that because it makes means you have meaningful games throughout until week 18.
Yeah, I'm going Texans for home field more than anything, just because, in division game, type game, you pick home field. But like you said, Jacksonville win this game, they arguably kind of jump maybe even the Chiefs in that 1 seed conversation. They got the Ravens still on their schedule and they're at the Browns, but other than that, there's 6 winnable games in the rest of their schedule. So 100%, I think they can be in that conversation. That's some added fuel to the fire for this game. I picked Houston just because home field advantage is a bit of a cop out, but I think they're riding a wave of momentum, and in a divisional game, so much on it, they could go to become a relevant AFC team again for the first time in quite a while. So, yeah, I'm back in Houston at home.
Awesome. Okay, we'll whittle through picking our winners in every single game in the rest of the 6 p.m. slate, and we'll start in the NFC South. A huge game in this one. The nature of the division means that Atlanta is still alive, but the last couple of weeks they've been one of the worst teams in football. They still have to play each other twice, which is huge. So if they can win this game, then somehow they can stick their way into the playoffs. It sounds like Derek Carr's going to play, coming off a concussion, but whether he looks good or not, we don't know. But Michael Thomas and Marshawn Lattimore will not play, but neither injury is season-ending, which is good. Thomas has gone on IR, but he will come back at the end of the season. And Lattimore is not on IR, but he's missing this game. They are 2 key players to be down. Desmond Ridder is back for the Falcons. We'll see how that goes because he's been horrific QB this season, I think, especially under pressure. Taylor Heineke, who played well in his time as a starter, 1.5 games, injured his hamstring in the last game, but he has practiced. It's been sort of, so that's part of the reason. But he's been limited, and I think it's just easier for them to restart Ridder than it is. Obviously, because Ridder came in for Heineke injured at the end of the last game before the bye. If the Falcons lose a few of these games coming up, especially with quite a few games in division, I think our offense probably could be far before the season closes. Not a fan of this offense at all. It's just you have so much play over there. You've got a good offensive line. You've got three excellent running backs. You've got a really good receiver in Drake London. You've got a really underrated receiver in Matt Collins, who is a terrific run blocker. You've got 2 tight ends who are playing some of the best stuff in football right now in Kyle Pitts and John U. Smith. It's just mental to think that this offense has been as horrible as it has been all season, and they were good last year without a quarterback. This year they've not been good without a quarterback, and I think that's where I think Smith's probably could be fired. I think a lot of Falcons fans are fed up with this as well. I think they're calling for his head, and while New Orleans are inconsistent, I like them to score more points than these Falcons offense, so I'm picking them to win. Got a little bit of a soft spot for the Saints offense as well. I love the skill positions players they've got. So yeah, give me the Saints to win this one. Probably the Falcons are favourite, but yeah, Saints win this by 2 scores. I'm that confident.
Yeah, we were saying about earlier, both these teams, plus the Bucks, plus the Seahawks, plus the Giants, could all be kind of hovering around 8 and 9, 9 and 8, come the end of the season. So these games are huge, especially divisional games. Atlanta hold the tiebreaker, currently 2-0 in NFC matchups. Still got to play the Saints twice, as you said. Got the Panthers and the Bucks, I believe, still on their schedule. So I believe it's almost in their hands, because I think if you just run the ball, don't force Desmond Ridder to beat someone with his arm. Run the ball with your 3 running backs that you have that can all run the ball well. Then you'd have no reason to be afraid of any of these NFC South teams on your schedule. And
that's the thing. They have to do that. And they've had a bye week to fix this offense as well. If they don't look good out the bye, then that's Smith gone, surely.
I mean, and both teams coming out the bye, so they've had a bit of time to get healthy. You said about Derek Carr, and it's actually quite an exciting match. The NFC South is a sneaky exciting conference because everyone's so kind of average, and then there's the Panthers as well. But so it's going to be an exciting game, and I think both these teams have some really nice skill position players. And we were saying it yesterday. Atlanta could be a top 10 personnel team in the league. Maybe in the off season. I know they're NFC quarterbacks at the moment, so you might not be able to trade for them. But go and get one of Justin Fields or Kyler Murray, depending on what those teams do in the draft, and you can easily become favourite in your division, and possibly become the 5th best team in the NFC overnight by getting one of those guys. And they fit the scheme as well with the kind of dual threat ability. I've gone Atlanta because, again, home field advantage. I think coming out of the bye, I'm gonna, for some reason, put my trust in them to run the ball, take it out of Ridder's hands. You've got 3 elite runners, and then you open up the vertical game with Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who I'd back to win a jump ball over anyone in the league 9 times out of 10. So, I've got Atlanta, but another quite interesting matchup with playoff implications.
Yeah, we'll go over to an absolutely fun game. I can't wait to watch this. The Giants going into New York at MetLife Stadium to play the Giants. Back-to-back games in MetLife this season. We'll see how the field turns around on that one. That doesn't fill me with confidence. We might see a couple of injuries in this game. The Patriots off a bye. The Giants off a shock win over Washington, where Tommy DeVito had their best quarterback performance of the season, which sort of shows where the Giants have been offensively this season. Both Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi have been taking 13 reps. There's not been a starter announced for the Patriots so far this week. Obviously, they benched Mac Jones in the game in Munich, in Frankfurt, for Zappi, who ended the game with that interception to the Colts. But it sounds like they will go with Matt Jones by what I've been reading, but they've not mentioned anything at all yet. We probably might see both of them in this game. I have a feeling we'll probably see both of them at some point, just by the way they've been quite trigger happy with quarterback decisions this season and for the past couple of years, to be fair. The Giants are super banged up in both trenches, which, I expect a Belichick coach team will probably be able to take advantage of, because that's something they are okay at compared to the rest of their team. So give me New England to win this game. They're 3.5-point favourites, and I expect them to win by way more than that. But yeah, 2-18, 3-18, so fun.
Yeah, I just typed boring, boring, boring. And then my second point was I hope both teams lose. I can very easily see this being a field goal off tie. It could be a 9-all draw type thing. It'll be decided by the boot of one of the kickers, I feel like. Like the Colts Broncos game last year on Thursday Night Football, it ended up being 12-9, which I stayed up for some reason. But yeah, it's hard to call. A couple of these games have been hard to call because both teams are good. This is hard to call for the complete other end of the spectrum. I do my weekly power rankings. These are 2 of the 3 worst teams in the league by quite a distance. I think they've kind of separated themselves from the pack at the bottom. I'll go with the Patriots just because I think they've got slightly more talent, if that's the right word to use, than the Giants. The Giants don't. I can't really pick one player other than Saquon Barkley on that team that's a star player
I'd say Kayvon Thibodeau, if I'm being honest. He's
Oh,
been
okay.
excellent. He's been excellent this year.
Admittedly,
I think he's got 10.5 sacks. He's certainly top 5 in sacks.
Yeah.
Him and Saquon have been shining lights on his team, and obviously Dexter Lawrence you can say as well. But even Dexter Lawrence is questionable in this game as well, so he's not practiced this week. Probably won't play either. So it's even more reason to pick.
But yeah, so I think probably New England, they'll take care of Tommy DeVito. Bill Belichick's not going to lose to Tommy DeVito. It's just not going to happen. As bad as the Patriots have been this year, it's just a thing that Belichick doesn't do. He doesn't lose to that kind of caliber quarterback. So yeah, I'd pick the Patriots as well. But swiftly moving on, I hope.
Yeah, we'll move on to two of the most fun sort of non-contenders to watch this season. I'd say they both face off. The Bucks going into Indianapolis with the Colts are 2.5-point favourites. Both still alive in a wildcard race though, and Tampa Bay for their division too. To be fair, the Colts are as well if they win this game. But the Bucks will be hoping for an Atlanta win to keep New Orleans in check before they play 4 division games in their final 6 weeks of the season. A win for the Colts will put pressure on Houston and Jacksonville with a favourable schedule for them coming up too, which will be fun to watch at the end of the season. But again, the Colts have to win this game. The Bucks are a bit banged up, especially on defense. There could be about Lawrence David and Jamal Dean in this game, which isn't a good sign at all. So I'm picking the Colts, even though I love the way that Baker and Mike Evans have been playing this season. Chris Godwin might also miss this game as well, which is another sort of factor in that for the Bucks. But yeah, the Bucks have to win this game. Otherwise, they're probably out of the playoff race. The Colts, it's about next year for them. Obviously, rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson is injured. He's out for the rest of the season. So it's just been about what you can do with Gardner Minshew, who's been good, but he's also turned the ball over a lot, and he has sort of got some games because they play an excellent defense. And I think that the run game for them has been spot on as well. Just Colts offense against this sort of banged up Tampa Bay defense is what makes me pick the Colts in this game. But the Bucks have to win this one, and if they lose this one, then their season's probably over. I'd say at 4-7, even with 4 games left, you're gonna have to win out. You have to win all 4 of them to even have a chance at getting in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Tampa will look to kind of take advantage of whichever team inevitably slips up in New Orleans Atlanta game, and Tampa Bay kind of would go a game out of the playoff race then if they win this.
And that's what I mean. It's fine margins.
On the flip side,
win this, they're firmly in. Yeah, if they lose this, they're firmly out. That's the thing.
Yeah. But on a like isolated note, Baker Mayfield against Gardner Minshew is like one of the funnest quarterback matchups. It's two blokes who are just going to sling the ball, and they're just both guys that you can so easily root for. But India, I think India will win, but I think inevitably they'll slip away in this AFC kind of playoff race. They're kind of lingering around at the moment, 500. They go above 500 with a win here, but I think they'll kind of eventually start to slip away. But yeah, I think like you said, home field advantage. Tampa Bay banged up. Colts, with Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor will just kind of control time of possession and just eke out a win.
Yeah, I share your thinking there. On to a battle of 2 rookie quarterbacks between Bryce Young and Will Levis, and 2 coaches who appear to be on the hot seat. But as I said earlier in the week, why the Titans were fired Mike Vrabel was beyond me. The reports will not go away though, as we talked about yesterday between the two of us, Charlie. Frank Reich, well, he's got till the end of the season to save his job by calling this offense. I thought he called a good game against the Cowboys, but his calls at the start of the season weren't great, which is why he gave up play calling. Again, I thought Carolina actually looked really good on defense last week against Dallas too. It was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, which is 1-9 team going against a 7-3. Sorry, 6-3 team at the time is pretty impressive. I'm picking the Panthers drop set here just because Tennessee's offense without Treylon Burks this season has been absolutely abysmal, because the team can take away DeAndre Hopkins and they can sort of they know you're going to run the ball with Derrick Henry, then they can't really adjust that because they've got no other weapons at all. We've seen that in the last few games that Burks has missed through a really bad concussion that he got. Obviously, the 2 games where he had when Levis had Burks, the Titans' offense was really good. Since then, it's been they've barely scored any points. So give me Carolina to upset in this one. Just got a feeling, and seeing two rookie quarterbacks going against each other as well will be quite fun to watch in this game as well.
I think I saw a stat the other day. I don't know how true it is, whether it was a couple of weeks old, but Tennessee are one of the only teams to not lose at home yet this year. Which kind of led me to pick the Titans just because, I think as well, they're a well-coached team. You wouldn't lose at home to 1-9 team that's going to probably end up giving Chicago the first overall pick. But Carolina aren't a good team. I think Frank Reich's pretty much nailed on to be one and done because the performance through the first half of the season has been horrendous. With all the hype that kind of came with it, I had them picked as a sneaky playoff contender, and that went south because their O-line has been dreadful. Bryce Young, he can't see over the O-line for starters, but then when the O-line part of the Red Sea is, he's got no hope in hell anyway. So I think I've got the Titans winning at home in this one. They'll kind of just, again, it'll be another slogfest. It's not going to be one that Red Zone's tuning into very much. Will Levis might throw a deep bomb to D-Hop at some point, but again, it's one of those kind of average petering out games. Neither team's making the playoffs. You get great playoff implication games like the two that we had at the top of the slate, and then you get these types of games which you have no kind of investment in. But
other than the quarterbacks, that's it. You want to see how the QBs look, and then that's it, really.
Yeah,
the Titans have lost once at home, and that was to the Ravens.
Right.
So everyone, most teams have lost to the Ravens this season. So sort of just shows that there. But I think Carolina for me, they got a coaching staff that's probably fighting for the job. And I think Vrabel, he probably will be safe. If they fire Vrabel, it's stupid. But I think and I think as well they're probably the most healthy team, and that probably does.
I think the only way Vrabel will go is if he gets traded.
Well, that's the thing. It sounds like New England might want him if they do move on from Belichick. So that could happen. But they probably want to get away from that whole Belichick tree. Anyway, but I don't know. Look, we'll move on. We'll move on from the Titans-Panthers game. We'll go to the final game of the 6 p.m. slate between the Steelers and the Bengals. The Steelers are 1.5 point favourites on the road. Unfortunately, this one has lost its shine in the last 7 days after Burrow was ruled out for the year and after Pittsburgh's disappointing offensive showing against the Browns. The Steelers have to win this game for their playoff hopes, but it's an AFC North game, so it's going to be tough, even with the Bengals having their backup quarterback. Especially the Bengals defense is no slouch too. But Jake Browning against the Steelers defense, give me Pittsburgh to win this. I'm hammering the over as well. And also for Cincy as well, T. Higgins being out again isn't ideal for them either. So give me the Steelers to win this one. And hopefully we can see something from Kenny Pickett, because otherwise I think he's done next year as a starter of Steelers at this point. Obviously firing Matt Canada as well. Hopefully the offense does look a little bit different.
Yeah, I think I'd say big game for Pittsburgh in their playoff hopes. You've got to win this. Take one from since you're on the down low after Joe Burrow injury. But with all the Joe Burrow injury news, the defense is relatively healthy as far as I'm aware for Cincy. So they're no slouches defensively. And Pittsburgh, like you said, were dreadful last week against the Browns. And I think Kenny Pickett's trending down. I saw a Colin Cowherd clip. He's trending down. Kenny Pickett's trending up. Kenny Pickett's trending down. John Love's trending up. And it's kind of a difference of situation where you have a defensive head coach or an offensive-minded head coach. And I wasn't a massive fan of Kenny Pickett coming into the game, coming into the season. I still don't think he's shown me that much. So I think I picked Cincy in a bit of a shock, at home. But I think they'd back themselves with their defense, kind of unsettle Kenny Pickett early, and then go on to kind of, I think early they could unsettle him and then give Brownie a chance to win this game, even if it's just getting him to field goal range late on, and Evan McPherson wins the game for him. I think it'd be a great storyline if Cincy won at home, kind of derailing Pittsburgh's playoff hopes, especially in considering they're a playoff hopeful team and it's an AFC North rival. So I think it could be a fun game, sneaky fun game, but yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised by that. I really wouldn't. I can see it happening. That completes the 6 p.m. slate. So we'll go over to the latest slate now. It's a slate of 4 games, starting with the big one, the Bills going into Philadelphia. This game is, again, it's another game that's massive. So many playoff implication games this week. What a slate it is. And that's what you get as well when you have every team playing on a week. There's 2 more bye weeks left. This is the first time that no team's been on the bye since the week before the trade deadline, so it's been quite a while since then. Buffalo on the outside looking into the playoffs. If they can win this one going into their bye week, it is massive. They're certainly back in the race for the playoffs. But they've got Philadelphia in their way, who have just won a Super Bowl rematch against the Chiefs. It's a tough must-win game for the Bills, though, isn't it? Like, they've looked good last week. They looked really good on offense with Joe Brady's taking over. Obviously, he was the guy who was the OC at LSU with Joe Burrow. So, and he unfortunately went to Carolina. I don't know why I did that after his time at LSU. But I think, I think big if they can perform like they did against the Jets defense against the Eagles, this certainly could be a game, couldn't it?
Yeah, and I think Philly are just so strong and at home. I don't see them losing this game. And yeah, they're one of those. If you can force Josh Allen to turn the ball over, you can beat this team, relatively easily. Because they got off to a hot start against the Jets, and the Jets didn't force any turnovers, so they kind of imposed their will on them. But if you can unsettle this team early, fairly new offensive coordinator in his role, kind of test him a little bit. And Philly, hostile place to go into. They're on a roll. I think Philly I took Philly to win quite assuredly, but Buffalo could easily cause an upset if they kind of come out early, score a couple of quick scores. Because Philly haven't necessarily been convincing when challenged toe to toe.
Well, that's the thing. Most
of their wins this year have been quite convincing wins against lesser teams, or if they've played a good team, they've got out early, caused a kind of couple of turnovers in the first half, and then run away with the ball. They've not, in a tight spot, they haven't shown a proper gritty win, I don't think.
Well, that's the thing. And for Jalen Hurts, who's now the bookie's favourite for MVP, he was actually better last year, if I'm being honest. It shows where the award's been at this year. But he's up there because he's had loads of push touchdowns, if I'm being honest. Like if you look at his actual in the air numbers, there's no way he's an MVP quarterback.
Yeah.
But a huge performance from him here would certainly help his case, wouldn't it? Going up against a great passing defense and a top 5 defense in terms of scoring. So this is another game this week that is crucial in the MVP race. Yeah.
I think Josh Allen kind of is out of it now after his turnovers in the kind of middle of the season, but Jalen Hurts, he's kind of hanging around in there, especially if this team ends up going like 16-1. Which would be an unreal season for them, especially for some of the games they've got on their record.
That's the thing.
I
These
think
games now really.
It's one of those ones that if Jalen Hurts beats the Josh Allen Bills, for as bad as the Josh Allen Bills or inconsistent or as the Josh Allen Bills have been this year, they could very easily, come in Philly and upset them. So if Jalen Hurts can beat them, then I think he's. He could be a shoo-in for that award. Not necessarily a shoo-in, but he's definitely got a justifiable case to win that award.
That's the thing. I'm so fascinated to see actually how it goes now because we talk about it so much. There's so many names. It's brilliant. Normally, you just have one person running away with it. Yeah. What gives me a little bit of hope with Buffalo is the fact that they scored the most points last week since they did in week 4 in their win over the Dolphins, where it was the last time that the offense looked good. Where they looked actually one of the best offenses in the league, and it looks like it was just Tua and Josh Allen who was MVP, who in the MVP conversation. Now it's a lot more. Tua is still there, probably Josh Allen not anymore, but that was a good sign last week. I'm still picking the Eagles, but I have a sneaky feeling, as you said, that Buffalo could surprise here, which is why I'm so excited to watch this game. I think
I picked Philly, but it's going to be I don't know if it's a CBS game or if it's generally CBS.
If Nance and Romo aren't on this,
I was going to say generally Nance and Romo get the Josh Allen game. I don't know, they do wax lyrical about him sometimes, but they generally get the Josh Allen game. So it would be a great game to have with the call. I won't be watching it because it's the next game we're going to talk about, but it's going to be
it is on CBS.
I'm going to follow.
I just checked. It is on CBS. So
it would be a Nance Romo call then on there. But yeah, it's going to be a really fun game to watch.
For sure. Another good game, as you mentioned, in the late window, one of the best this week between the Browns and the Broncos. As I said, ginormous in the AFC wildcard race as well, especially for Denver, who after winning 4 straight for the first time since 2016, have put themselves right back into this race. As a Broncos fan, Charlie, I bet you're on cloud 9 at the minute. Yes, how do you feel this game's going to go before I give my prediction?
Yeah, I think this is the first time I've been nervous about watching a game of American football in late November, early December for as long as I can remember. In the Teddy Bridgewater years, we were kind of lingering on the outside looking in for a lot of the season, then kind of petered away at the end with his concussion. That's the closest we've been to this point since then. And that year, I don't think we beat many legit teams. We've been on a 3-game stretch where we beat 3 genuine playoff caliber teams. Convincingly beat the Chiefs, should have convincingly beat the Bills, should have convincingly beat the Vikings. And I think it's those should-ofs that put the doubt in my mind when I see them, because they've generated the most turnovers in the league in the last 3 weeks, 12 takeaways, which is almost unprecedented kind of run of turnover production, but we don't score off the turnovers. Scored 9 points off turnovers against the Vikings, and that sounds like a fair amount. But when you consider they were, they were mostly field goals, and they mostly have been field goals. If we have scored off turnovers, they've been field goals, and we need to be more ruthless. I wrote it in my takeaways article this week and the week before that we need to be more ruthless offensively off turnovers, because if you get a team like the Browns, who probably will control time of possession, they'll run the football a lot. We can't defend the run, which is a horrible mix as it is. But if you can force Dorian Thompson-Robinson to turn the ball over a couple of times, then you get short fields. You have to score touchdowns off of those. You can't just kind of keep kicking field goals and hoping to keep incremental leads. You've got to take a big jump out, early, and then force the Browns to kind of beat you offensively instead of suffocate you defensively, and play your own kind of game and then kick field goals to beat you. So I'm nervous for the game, and I think the Browns are probably the most informed team we've played in our run. Many times weird because the Vikings were on a 6-game winning streak, but the Browns I think are more legit than the Vikings, especially defensively. And yeah, I've picked Cleveland to win because I think Cleveland's matchup is not a great matchup for the Broncos with the rush, with the running ability of Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt against the Broncos running a defense which is the worst in the league, I believe, or one of the worst. But yes, I want Cleveland to win.
I feel like Denver are actually going to win this game, a low-scoring game, as we've seen with every single Denver and Cleveland game this season. So we're going to see that definitely. Their offense might score the only touchdown of the game, something like that potentially. I think it'll be that close. partly because I think the sounds like the Browns will be without Denzel Ward in this one. Obviously, he's their best corner. He's come in a few games, unfortunately, which might be sort of pivotal down the stretch. But they've got good secondaries. I don't think it'll be too much of a loss. But you may have one sort of busted coverage or something that gives Denver the lead, something like that. Let's go for Denver to win this game, spice up a little bit, and really spice up the wild card race. I think as well. Is try go for that.
If we go to 6-5 on a 5-game winning streak, got another huge game at Houston the week after, and then you look at the run of, then you're at the Chargers, then you got the Lions, who we've seen aren't invincible. They can wobble. Then the Patriots are on that schedule again, then the Chargers and the Raiders again. There's no reason that the Broncos can't, mount a real charge here. And a Cortland Sutton touchdown feels like a banker now. He scored a touchdown in the last 5 weeks, which I knew he was on a good run. I didn't quite believe it was that good. But he's been tremendous.
Some quite cool sort of toe tapping catches in there as well. To be fair,
two really good catches, kind of tight zones in the end zone. But he's kind of emerged as the Broncos wide receiver one, and I think that's helped Jerry Jeudy, who's seen a bit more productive in the last few weeks.
Obviously, getting hurt last year sort of hurt that. They sort of hurt your offense. I think he always has been, because he's sort of, especially in the red zone as well, he's like the target.
Well, he's a bit like DK Metcalf in that you throw a jump ball up to him and you'll back him to win it. And then, like I said, that's helped Jerry Jeudy. He's become a bit more of a slot guy who works on the secondary corner, and then you have the vertical threat Marvin Mims. And if Tim Patrick was healthy, this would be a really nice balanced receiving core. Sadly, he did both his ACLs in the last 2 years. So, but yeah, I back Cleveland to win, possibly more for my own superstitions than anything, subconsciously. But I think it's just not a great fit for Denver against this Cleveland offense.
There we are. We'll go over to Arizona, where the Cardinals were favourite for the first time this season ahead of their home game to the Rams. But with the news that they sounds like they're probably going to be about not only Hollywood Brown but also Michael Wilson, two of their most productive receivers this year, the Rams are now favourites. The Rams won 26-9 in week 6, but that was in LA, and the Cardinals have been much better at home than away. It's quite a stark difference, actually. It's one of the weirdest. It's like the Cowboys as well. It's one of the weirdest sort of anomalies you look in data every week. It's just like, okay, if they're at home, they're very, very good, and if they're away, they're one of the worst teams in the league. Also, now they have Kyler Murray back too. I think it adds a bit of a different zone, especially the way the Rams have been since that game as well. They've lost quite a few games. As for the Rams, actually, 3 of their 4 wins this season have come in division. So if they win this, they're going to 4-1 in the division, and and they'll go to 5-6 in the season, which is just so NFC West. But I'm going to go for the Rams to win this one, just because, again, although I like Arizona at home and I think it'll be close, I think the Rams just sneak it, because they're probably the most healthiest team of the two.
Yeah, I think it's a fun game. Matt Stafford and Kyler Murray, two really good quarterbacks.
Fun games, don't they? So
yeah,
it's always fun with the Rams and the Cardinals. When they play each other, it's only going to be fun.
Yeah. Arizona have some defensive talent on IR. I think Kaiser White moved to IR in a week. He's been really good for them this year. But yeah, I think the Rams win it. I don't think the Cardinals have enough talent to kind of beat. The Rams don't have a lot of talent either, but I think Matt Stafford's support Carlsbad and Kyler Murray's, and yeah, it might be a little like high scoring one because neither defense has a massive amount of talent
in a dome as well. They do sort of game up in those situations. So.
It could be quite a fun high scoring one. Yeah, one of those that Scott Hansen keeps going to in the late window on red zone because they're just racking up the score.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
especially if only 4 games as well, it probably will happen.
Yeah, if the Rams win as well, they kind of sneaky on the outside looking into the playoffs, especially like you said with their 4-1 divisional record as well.
Okay, yeah, only if they beat Seattle again. No, they beat Seattle twice. If they win another game and Seattle lose to the Niners, then they're firmly in there, and that's the thing.
a little sneaky backdoor kind of entrant into the playoffs would be fun. It would be hideous for their rebuild because they'd lose a high draft pick, but it would be quite fun. But yeah, I'd back the Rams.
There we are. And then the final game in the late window is between the Chiefs and the Raiders. I'm kind of looking forward to this one because the Raiders have been really good recently. They've had a bit of a spark. Been one of the best teams in football the last couple of weeks, actually. And the Chiefs are coming off a loss. Obviously, a lack of weapons were evident again in the game on Monday night against Philadelphia, as were drops. But the Chiefs' defense against a rookie QB, give me the Chiefs. I do think it will be closer than many think now. I think it will be under the 8.5 points that the Chiefs are favoured by.
As good as the Raiders have been, the Chiefs are going to be angry coming into this one. After Monday night, like you saw MVS slamming his helmet against the wall. Patrick Mahomes walking off the field looked really like effed off. And they've got a nice stretch to win the year. So if you can kind of start that momentum rolling, going into a division rival. Because if KC drop this game and Denver win this week, Denver suddenly one game back from the Chiefs. Right? Like, this is kind of how quickly the years turned round. And, KC can't afford to drop any of these divisional games, especially. So, as good as the Raiders have been, and Aiden O'Connell's been good enough to kind of keep them in games with the way the defense has played, I think the Chiefs are just too good. They'll blitz the hell out of him, Spags, as he does, with a rookie quarterback. And I think Patrick Mahomes will just do his thing, dissect this defense, and they'll win fairly comfortably on the road, I think.
Cool. Let's go over to Sunday Night Football now, between the Ravens and the Chargers. One of the best Sunday Night games I've had in a while, actually. 10 days after taking a stronghold in the AFC North title race, the Ravens now travel to LA to face the Chargers ahead of their bye week as well. So the Ravens' bye week has come at a really good time for them, actually. Last week, Herbert was PFF's highest graded quarterback and yet lost, with the Chargers' skill players being played with drops and turnovers. And it wasn't Brandon Staley's fault either. The defense played well. It was firmly on the skill position players that the Chargers lost last week, as well as maybe situationally a little bit. But now they've lost Jay Bosa. And I think it's going to take a miraculous performance that we've not seen before from Justin Herbert to beat the Ravens defense. Obviously number one in a lot of categories this season. And he's missing two skilled players. I mean, they've still got two first-round pick receivers in Keenan Allen and Quinton Johnston, but they're just not getting anything out of Johnston this season. So my pick of the week, the Baltimore Ravens smashed the over against the Chargers at 3.5 at the minute. Give me the Ravens to win this one. And this game probably is the end for Brandon Staley. If they don't win this game, he's done. He's certainly done because they're out of the playoff race.
Yeah, they're half out of the playoff race now, I think, with their running. They've got a pretty difficult stretch. As to Baltimore, I think currently are the best team in the AFC from what we've seen. Their defense is sneaky good. Lamar's doing his thing.
Well, it's sneaky good and it's best in the NFL good.
But I don't think they get talked about as the best
No,
defense in the league type thing. Whereas statistically they are in a lot, and their pass rush,
only
which a lot of
points
people.
A game. That's mental. Think about the teams who play in the AFC point scoring wise, and you're allowing 14 points a game.
Yeah, a lot of people have been like, their pass rush isn't great. Losing, some of the talent they lost. Calais Campbell in the off season, in particular, I think was one that stood out. But Adafi always, been really good. Madabuike's been really good, and they just kind of.
They're getting to fight Jadeveon Clowney as well. He's had a really good season.
Yeah. And they just kind of lean on that run game, like Gus Edwards, Lamar obviously with his legs, and then even though Mark Andrews gone down, it seems like finally there's receivers stepping up in Baltimore with Odell and Rashad Bateman. They kind of have finally stepped up to the fore and are helping Lamar in the reception game. So I think Baltimore win this as well quite comfortably. Chargers, it feels like they're coming to the end of an era, just kind of going through the motions almost. Feels like they have a couple of sneaky, big wins in them to kind of shake up the AFC playoff picture, but I don't think they're going to be in it come crunch time, and they're in danger of kind of finishing bottom of the AFC West as well with the way the Raiders are playing at the moment and the way the Broncos are playing.
Yeah, I think Lamar probably again chucks himself into the higher echelons of the MVP conversation with a good performance here as well. So there's that to look for too, and then we'll finish with Monday Night Football, which a couple of weeks ago this looked awful, but it's not been flexed out because now it's quite a good game. I'm kind of looking forward to this one. Whereas a month ago I'll be dreading it. It's a madness that a 7-4 team, 6-5 team in the Vikings is only 3.5 point favourites against a 3-8 team. But it just shows how much of a mad season it's been for both teams. I do think it'll be that close as well. Especially with TJ Hawkinson questionable. He gritted through a rib injury last week, but he wasn't the same player in that game. You could tell he was injured. Justin Jefferson obviously has already been ruled out as well. I'm still picking the Vikings, but I do hope that Justin Fields keeps this one close. I think it will be close, but just give Minnesota to win this game. And they kind of do need to win this one as well, because if they win this, they're probably sure down for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields has 7 auditions basically to the Bears as to where they should keep him and not draft Caleb Williams. And it starts in this game, and this will be a real test for him because the Vikings blitz the most motivated team in the league. And
If Flores is going to do something crazy to try and spin Justin Fields' head,
yeah,
now that's the thing with that scheme as well. I just want to say something. Against the same scheme last year for Miami, Fields had one of his best games of his career. So, over 100 yards on the ground, which he got last week as well, and in the air he was excellent as well. So in that aspect, I think he will have a very good game.
Well, this is what I was going to say. If he backs himself in his running ability, he could force Flores early to back off the blitz because he will gash him with his legs, and then he gets himself a bit more time in the pocket. But if they abandon his running ability like they did earlier in the season and try and force him to be a pocket passer and pass his ball around, they will get absolutely massacred because Justin, he's not got a great sense of pressure. He's not got a great escapability, like pocket presence when it collapses on him quickly. So I think if you kind of dial up those QB draw plays, his kind of wildcat plays where he's kind of, if he can't throw to his first read, he gets out quick and just gets yards with his legs, then this could be a really interesting close game quite late on in the day. Denver laid down a blueprint of how to beat Josh Dobbs as well. If you kind of contain him, force him to throw the ball, he's not an amazing quarterback. He's a lot of what he's done, like you were saying to me yesterday, is he's done with his legs.
Yeah, he's been one of the worst quarterbacks throwing the football this season. It's been his legs that's made him stand out.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why he is still a backup quarterback. You've had the whole the astronaut type thing. That's been and gone now. He's lost a game. The streak's over. He beat 2 bad teams. Chicago by no means a good team. They're still like bottom 5 in the NFL, but there's a blueprint now of how you beat Josh Dobbs. And Matt Eberflus being a defensive head coach, you'd hope that he's kind of, we always hear it's copycat league. You'd hope he kind of implements some of that and helps his team out. I picked Minnesota to win, but I think it could be, like you said, a close game.
For sure. Well, that's it. We've gone through every single game. It's been nice to keep it sort of quite a short podcast because literally every team in the league's played this week. We've had 3 games in the week already. So just trying to keep it brief and not go on for 2 hours is quite difficult. So really good podcast this week. Thank you for that, Charlie. Thank you for coming on as well. It's been great to have you on, and we'll get you on again in the next couple of weeks as well, hopefully before the season.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to this week's slate. There's some good games at each window and some that we'll be paying no attention to, but I said it a couple of weeks ago, and we're really in the thick of it now, the crunch time, your MVP candidates start to rear their heads, playoff teams start to show themselves, and the kind of the chasing pack falls away quite dramatically in these next kind of couple of weeks and around to Christmas. So it's going to be exciting.
That's what I mean. I think it will be the best week of the season because there's so much riding on it this week. Because there's so much MVP race, playoff position, as division races. There's so much riding on results this week, that is going to be one hell of a Sunday. So we'll see you after that Sunday. We'll see you probably Tuesday morning after Monday Night Football. We'll give you instant reaction to that on the podcast, and we'll that's it. I think we'll see you then. Hopefully early on Tuesday morning as well, so I can get it all done and dusted, and is still relevant. But yeah, after all these games, we're gonna be talking about one hell of a different NFL this time at the end of the weekend. So I'll see you then. I've been Sam Morse. This has been the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast, and bring on Sunday of Week 12. It's going to be one hell of a ride.